Further ado, welcome to Effin' Movie Podcast. I'm your host, Dylan Camacho, and today we are talking about Foxcatcher, right?
Yes.
Foxcatcher?
Yeah,
I always forget the last part of that. Foxtrot, Foxcatcher, Foxhound.
We've been talking about it for like 10 minutes.
Fox and the Hound,
prior to this.
Whatever. So we're talking about Foxcatcher today. This is Price's pick for the week. That will be relevant later. And
I guess
let me. We're just introducing the host with it. First, of course, of this week, Price Bell in the house, everybody. In his house, literally. Followed by, to my left, Mason, or possibly Dylan Camacho, depending on who you ask.
Yeah,
Mason, Rector.
lately.
Yep. And, of course, we got Nathan over here, am I right? He doesn't got a last name right now because I forget it sometimes. Sorry, Nathan.
We'll put the @ in the description.
It's a long last name.
I know.
It's a real long last
I know.
name. It's easy to forget.
See, it's not exotic like Camacho. But anyway, so we're here today talking about Foxcatcher. Price, I guess I'll go ahead and let you start a little bit on it. It's your week, so...
I'm totally fine with this. Got some notes here. Been ready for it. I like this movie a whole lot more. I mean, I did pick it. Saw it back. I guess it's around when it came out because that's about when I started watching The Office. Got really interested with Steve Carell. Wanted to see him outside of a comedic role. Saw all the. There's a lot of promotion for this. I don't know if you all remember. There surprisingly a lot. I saw quite a few of it, especially
because it was a true story and everything.
Yeah, it's a true story, and especially the character transformations, the actor transformations, rather, which is one of the things I was wanting to talk about, is that there are so many, like, they did so well with all the nuances of every part. I'll go ahead and start with that. Especially how the actors had to transform themselves to fit this, especially Mark Ruffalo and Channing Tatum, which I think they picked up a lot of mannerisms, which, like, they don't do in any of their other movies. Just the way Channing Tatum walked, I thought was incredible. Like, he had this
out of his norm. Yeah,
he had this real like flat-footed,
he had a
square kind of walk, and Mark Ruffalo did too. They both were very
walk like
thick.
cavemen. Those ones too.
Yeah, definitely, and they were a lot thicker because, I mean, of course, everybody's seen Channing Tatum with the shirt off. I know, swoon, and he had his shirt off a lot in this, and it was very different from like the cut Channing Tatum we're used to seeing, and he was very thick.
He was bulker,
yeah, way more bulky, and which again fit exactly what they were trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
Steve Carell's transformation, I can't really, as on a physical level, it was just makeup and stuff. He didn't really have to do anything on that front, but he carried the movie. I think for me, Steve Carell, I know it may not for everybody because it's a very different kind of way, very dry, very. I don't think cold is the right word, but very dry, which I think kind of carries over.
Cold as well.
Yeah, you know that he was playing as somebody that was like a real person.
Probably identical to that.
Yeah, and that's why I kept being like, okay, like this, like as a character in a movie, if this were not like based on a true story, I would have been very bothered by this character. See, I wasn't.
You gave him the benefit of the doubt.
I was very much believing in his character and why he was acting like that. Especially that one scene where Channing Tatum and Steve Carell are talking to each other, and he says, the only friend I've ever had. I thought we were best friends, and then when I was 16, I found out that my mom was paying him. It's the only friend I've ever had, and it. Like that shows how he views relationships. That basically money is the only way to buy whatever he wants. Another good little nuance. Not really a nuance, but they don't put it in your face like most movies. Was the wrestling scene where not the wrestling scene. That's entirely the movie. The one where it's the 50 and older division that he creates for himself, and he, like, you can tell that he paid.
He's been trained.
You can tell by just the way the guy that he's pinning is just kind of looking around
and just sitting there.
Yeah,
and I mean, even when they just kind of take him aside, like in the background of the shot, you see Steve Carell's helper guy. Totally don't know his name. I don't think I even say it, but the guy basically does all of his operations. Like, kind of takes the guy aside and is like talking to him and stuff, and you have to infer, you have to actually use your brain, which I love that this movie assumes that you have a brain, which a lot of movies like have to put everything in your face, and this very much doesn't.
Yeah.
And took him aside, and you could infer that he had to pay for that, and I liked it.
Yeah. I really got the feeling though that his character like had Asperger's or something. Like he
had to have had
not
something.
function as a normal person that would pick up on the emotions.
He was raised in such an environment, though. That
Yeah,
He was raised in
like
well.
his behavior
Mega
around
well.
his
Yeah.
the behavior around his mother and like that weird conversation they had about like putting the trophy up in that room, like
The
everything
value
about
and
that,
importance
he was so like infantilized and
He
just-
needs validation from his mother
Yes.
in every aspect.
Very much so. That scene in the wrestling room where his mom comes in and he like has them sit in a circle and is like, "Hey, spread out so she can see me better."
Yeah.
Like spread out, and he's showing him like this awful wrestling move.
Yeah,
Yeah.
probably like the most
That
basic
doesn't
wrestling
work.
move.
Yeah, and like he's like, "You're supposed to turn their arm over, then you push them, and then they're supposed to like they fall down, and the
Yeah.
guy just like briefly stumbles.
Yeah.
Like nothing even happens.
Yeah. All of this
Yeah.
movie seemed like, and I'm with Nathan, if this wasn't a true story, I probably would have turned it off, only because Steve Carell's character to me was just cringy. I do agree. I think he had to have had something wrong with him. That is not just a social disorder. That is not just like a incompetence and, social status. Something had to have been done.
Oh, yeah.
Totally different in his mind. I don't know
I
what it
feel
was.
like there's something very off about him.
And that's the thing. Like, I'm sure if I had enough, interest to look it up and
I did
figure
look
it
a
out.
I looked a lot of stuff
Yeah.
up. I was very interested to see what was real. And what
I was
not.
mostly
They were
just
very
kind
on
of
point.
looking up like just kind of how the characters look compared to the real people, and also like
They were
what
very
things
close.
happened and actually didn't happen
Yeah,
between.
because that's
How much is
can always
dramatized versus
say,
how much is
yeah.
the actual thing, right?
The only thing that I really saw was something, just a dumb thing, where at the end when Channing Tatum's at the MMA fight or whatever, apparently that's the only fight that, I think he was Mark Schultz. I think that's because
Mark
his
Schultz
brother
is
was
Channing Tatum.
And
Yeah.
David was his brother, right?
David was
Yeah.
Yeah, at the end, apparently, Mark Schultz has fought, I think, one time in the MMA, which is what they showed there. And he was fighting a African-American gentleman rather than a white guy in real life.
Mhm.
And apparently Joe Rogan flipped about that. That's the only real big thing that I saw. Which again,
Yeah,
It's a
that's
strange
there were little,
yeah, it is. Which I don't think that was even important.
Yeah.
There were a few other little things I saw, like the moment where he was shooting the gun inside of the gym. Like that didn't actually happen. I'd have to look back up at the list, but there were a lot of little things that didn't really happen.
Nothing
and
that
like
probably pertained big critically to the movie or anything, though.
yeah, not so much. Like some of it was for pacing reasons. Like at the end, whenever. Well, I mean, do we want to talk about kind of what happens with the movie a little bit? Because the ending of it, it's not like he's
Like a
taken,
summary
he's
or
not
what?
captured immediately.
No.
He actually
He gets back to his
standoff with
farm.
the police
So,
for a
right.
while.
Full spoilers.
Talk.
If you're joining in on the FN Movie Podcast, we always go full spoilers into this. I know something to probably preface, but as you watch this channel, you will just understand that we will just go right into the movie without any restraints
Yeah.
on it. So to kind of cover into the point that Nathan's referring to, you can go into how Steve Carell shoots Mark Ruffalo's character in a car
3 times.
Yeah.
multiple
Yeah.
times.
Yeah, and
Some would say 3.
Again, that like
Multiple.
it's those kind of things that I'm like, that is some kind of mental disorder that you're seeing.
Oh, it definitely
in
was.
this character.
You definitely see that snap. I think this, like the Thanos snap of his personality shift, would have been when he's sitting alone in his chair watching the video of himself.
Mhm.
Because I don't think he can come to grips with who he really is when he's watching that. I don't know. You can't really tell because he's just kind of blankly staring at the screen. I think that's when he like really snapped. It was
So I think your opinion on the mental health thing is going to be the one I would definitely trust at this table. But looking at even just kind of the parts, I could honestly see it just being a grief thing, though. I mean, it's at the time where he's social
his mother
skills.
had passed a while ago. A lot of time had passed from when his mom died.
Right, but it felt like from that point forward, it was just like the slow domino picks from that. And even if it's a long time past, I think it just became more of a, okay, well, who do I have to please now? Who am I looking to sit here? Because he had a friend and he threw that away.
I agree with
Grandma,
that
and he
very
threw it away.
much.
So then now it's just like, do I please myself? And he's like, I don't even know how to do. Like, there's an internal dialogue you can tell where it's just like, I don't even know how to do that. And then now it's just impulse. I think it just became it. He was just like, I'm mad, so I'm going to go take it out with the gun. And I think that's kind of how that Ruffalo scene plays out in that way.
That was directly after he watched the video recap of his amazing career, right? When he's on the couch, because I think he gets up from that, gets the car. Yeah, because he looks over and is like, "Get my car ready."
Right.
And
yeah.
the assistant's
It had
like,
been a
"Okay."
romance scene.
Yeah.
So this movie has a lot of things going on with it, and I will say the one thing that I looked up the most is why this movie got made.
Never have I heard Dylan wait this long to talk in any.
You're about to see a grenade.
Yeah, I mean,
all right.
Disperse.
If you've been watching him the entire time, he's been like very collected.
I've been trying to hold back the flood.
So here it goes.
I really have.
Here it goes.
Let me start with saying not only do I mean that in joke, I mean that quite literally. Like I sat here and as I watched this movie, I kept thinking to myself, who is this movie made for? Like. As I'm watching it, I'm like, all right, is it for wrestlers? It's not really like a good wrestling movie. It's based on a true story that happens to have wrestlers involved, and sure, they're pro medalists and great. Like, but I'm like, okay, so maybe it's an '80s piece, but it doesn't really feel '80s. I mean, sure, you know, it's a different time period, but that it's not like you couldn't say
it's like a fictionalized documentary.
Right? You couldn't say this is an '80s movie. So then you look at documentary and stuff like that, and I'm like, do documentary people? All right, so who cares about this DuPont story? Because really, at the end of the day, Steve Carell's character is kind of the linchpin to it. He brings everything together.
Well, no one really knew about it, so they brought it to light.
Anybody born before the year 1775 probably knew about this story.
Yeah, so it might have been a relevant time. 1775? You got it here first. So, all right, this may have been a popular...
declaration was signed 1 year later.
So,
this is a big movie.
this may be a story for, all right, people on this time who heard about this incident and they fleshed it out into a movie. But then it begs the question on... I don't know. I'm not born in that generation, so I can't speak for it. But speaking for somebody not born in the generation, looking back on it, I didn't care. This movie wasn't for me. At best, it's maybe for somebody who is relevant in this situation. As I'm watching this, I literally kept thinking, is this just the movie made for this character? Until they, wrap up and say that he dies in jail. Spoiler. It is one of those things where I was just like, this feels like a fluff piece. Like, it looks like it's supposed to be a satire fluff piece on, like, boosting up the DuPont character. But then it gets to a point where I'm like, okay, so he's trying to show the dark side on it, but that's all beside the point. So a lot of this thinking is just like, I didn't know who the crowd they were trying to bring with this. Is it with a wrestling crowd, documentary crowd, this and this and this? And I felt like if they did, that they just weren't doing anything right on either category. I think it was a buffet of bland across the board. Whenever I went into this movie,
whoa,
I feel
whoa.
No, buffet of bland.
We definitely need to analyze that.
All right,
that's a loaded statement.
Let me get into the feelings on this. So if this is a drama, let me look at it from a genre perspective.
Let's talk about buffet of bland.
So buffet of bland. If this is a drama, it felt like the emptiest punch. It was one of those things that I didn't feel any stakes with. I didn't feel connected to any of these characters. At most, Ruffalo is the most attractive character in this film. Steve Carell's character for me was so one note. He was, I'm a rich man and I have rich man problems, and this is all the rich man life I've had to deal with, and I also am socially awkward because I've had a rich man problems.
What Dylan is trying to say is if Pennsylvania got a nuclear bomb dropped on it in the middle of this movie, he probably would have applauded it, and this movie would have ended, and he probably would have walked away.
At least, you know what? I have a crowd for that. It's the Remember Me crowd. If we could go retroactively back and just have a crowd who just likes watching a movie get nuked or blow up.
If this is a drama, they missed their target.
All right,
because let's show of hands, who cared about almost any character in this movie?
I definitely did. How did you not?
I thought the character, Mark's character
was very the beginning.
It was it was an interesting piece on somebody just struggling,
to get by, living off of the talent of his previous. Olympics.
To me, this is a piece that. Where this would make sense to me is calling attention to the fact that gold medalists in the Olympics are generally just
thrown to the wayside.
They're lost after that. They have done so much and tried so hard to achieve something really incredible.
Yeah,
and they have nothing else to show for it. They don't build nothing is built for them after that.
You're not a celebrity. You're not particularly famous unless you start doing something extra or you really milk it along the way.
That's where I thought this thing was going as it started.
And that is. See, and if they had carried that point forward, I think that might have made
much more interesting. They did. They crush your soul in the first 10 minutes when Channing Tatum gives that speech at the school.
They crush your soul, Channing. I wasn't connected enough to Channing Tatum's whole character in this the whole time.
I've kind of felt that from the beginning. That's where I thought this was going, and I was immediately okay, I'm interested in this. I think this is a good thing to make a movie about. But then I didn't expect where
they tackle so many concepts, and I think they do them all very well. I really do. I honestly was going to compare this to a Persona game. Really, I was.
See, and this is
because it starts out slow with this very small thing, and then you pick up all of these concepts along the way and finishes with a bang that ties together all of these different concepts.
If we had an outline, if we were to compare it in that, sure, I would agree in that. But I think that outline versus execution, it just did not land for me. Like, Channing Tatum's character was... Listen, I could say, here are all 3 notes of each character. Steve Carell's character is, I'm rich and I have rich people problems and I bought my friends. And I'm just like, this sounds like I would make this up for a character. Mark Ruffalo's character is, I was having to be your dad as an older brother and now I'm being a dad to my kids while trying to be your dad. Okay. Channing Tatum's character is, I have an inferiority complex. That defines all 3 of these characters, and I don't feel it ever gets any more depth than that. And once I got that all within the first 5 minutes of meeting these characters. I never felt like it evolved. I never felt like it got deeper. It just meant that they got put in situations where they acted slightly different. But Mark Ruffalo's character gets upset as his older brother and dad, stays that way, continues to hit that note throughout the whole film, and then dies as a dad. Like,
I feel like it's just kind of seeing those personality types playing out. Like, yeah, they don't change, but you can kind of see where those things go bad.
Right.
Like, you see where Channing Tatum's character is in a bad way and things just only get worse for him because he's got such a poor outlook on himself and life in general.
But I hate that felt so predictable by that point, though. It's just like, all right, so if you said, all right, at the beginning of this movie, you're like, I'm going to give you a drama with a character with inferiority complex. I would probably tell you beat for beat that it's going to be like, all right, well, he's going to be a little bit good and he's going to be really like, he's going to go off the deep end. And then that really just kind of beats 2 of the main characters' whole plot lines into this.
Totally going to refute all 3 of those things you said about their one-note characters. We'll start with Channing Tatum. You said all he was an inferiority complex. Mm-hmm. He's looking for a father figure the whole time. That's not an inferiority complex. An inferiority complex is like, I don't see myself as ever being able to achieve. I can't achieve what my brother has achieved. They literally achieved the exact same thing.
And he didn't feel it was the same gravity. Like, that's the inferiority part behind it. Exactly to my point, Price. Counterpoint.
Well, you definitely do see him feeling like he's sitting in the shadow of his brother.
Right.
I agree.
They accomplished the same
DuPont character would rather.
Where's your brother? Where's your brother? It beats the dead horse, and
but that's one note of his character. He's also looking for a father figure the entire movie. That's another major aspect of his character that you're definitely overlooking, because he said that his brother raised him and like was his whole life, and like he put everything on his brother because they were alone together. And
then DuPont tries to be this weird character,
and then DuPont is like, no, put him aside. I'm going to be your father figure now, which Tatum like explicitly says in that speech, which again, he was drip fed that speech, but he did believe that, like, through all the actions of the movie, like especially that after he wins that one match, after I think it's the qualifiers.
They went to the Worlds.
Yeah,
it was in Paris or something.
Well, this was the qualifiers, to compete for the Olympics. He wins that one match. He does a freaking backflip, which by itself was impressive, because I'm like sure he did that himself. But after he does that, like, he kind of slaps his brother, like, good job or whatever, and then goes up and hugs. It goes straight to him because he wants his approval. He needs his approval because he was 27, I think he said. He's still a kid, and he still hasn't grown up past being a kid because he hasn't developed past, like, he's only developed his wrestling career. He's not really thinking about his emotions and like how to conduct himself. I mean, you see through his apartment that he does not how to be an adult. And he doesn't know how to function outside of the world of wrestling, which is when DuPont offers him this job for $20,000. Like, he said
the biggest number I had is $28,000.
$20,000. He's still a kid. Like, he doesn't think like he sees this amazing wealth this guy has, flies him out on a helicopter, like has this insane setup, and he asks for $20,000.
To be fair, $28,000 in the 80s.
In the 80s,
more, but
I don't know what, $30,000 maybe today.
No, not even close.
I don't know.
It's a lot. It's probably closer to
27 years old is old.
Right, 27 old.
Wrestlers don't do much after like 33.
That's not
right.
Like,
after the hump of being 30, as any athlete.
I understand that. Yeah, that Channing Tatum is like, in your opinion, not mentally like progressed or like, grown or evolved. But like 20, he needs to have his shit in gear at that.
He needs to, but he doesn't. That's the thing. Like, he should, and that's why how he deals with his problems, he does those awful visceral things where he punches himself. Mm-hmm. He did that twice in the movie.
So there was I saw a thing about how, like, the real person that he was playing, like, he wanted losing to be associated with pain.
Sure.
So every time he lost at anything, he would beat himself up. And apparently Channing Tatum actually was hitting himself. And the scene where he smashed his head into the mirror, that was real. And he smashed it in so hard that he smashed the drywall in behind the mirror.
He was very that scene was really rough. Like you could see like how tense his muscles were like the whole time
too.
Yeah, oh yeah, he definitely was, and that was. I loved how they also used sound in this movie as well, like especially the music. Like music was hardly ever used, and when it was, it was meant to emphasize what it was there. Like you didn't turn off the background music. Like when it came on, it was to show something was happening. When it turned off, you knew something was going down.
See, and I think that was one of the things that I remember thinking like, all right, if I'm going to be full snob on the movie and like try to
what you're going for?
I'm not. Like, listen,
you're going for it.
I don't think he is.
Of this is like literally how I felt about the movie. I'm not even getting into like this full critique. And if I'm having to sit here and do this, I'm like the score not being there was like the absent stuff really set a weird tone that I didn't like. And listen, you know what? Shrug all day. It's my opinion against yours. You're not going to kill it.
I'm in the same boat. I mean, it's not because it's your movie. It's not because
it really isn't.
It's like the driest movie I've ever seen, which it might honestly be one of the driest movies I've ever seen.
Which is why I like it so much.
See, and I'm on the complete other side of it. Like
a shower bath.
Yeah,
like God.
Let me put it this way. I
wanted to take a shower after Raw.
Exactly.
All right, so
exactly.
So I watched this film and I walked away and I sat there and the first thing I wanted to like Google was like, why did this movie get made? And I'm like, that's not a good feeling. And literally, like, I stayed up for another 30 minutes before ever actually going to bed because I was just like, this film bothered me. I'm like, but why? I'm like, I know I didn't like it. Like, I walked away knowing pretty quickly. I was like, I didn't like this film. I knew about 30 minutes into this film, whenever I'm like checking the time, and that's a true case for anything. If you start checking time on a movie, it's probably not a good
starting to unravel in your mind. Yeah.
And it goes on for longer than I feel like it should into a longer point. But anyway, so I'm not even going to get into the critiques of it. At the end of the day, I did not like this movie. And I thought even more impressive was that to you to take Mark Ruffalo, Channing Tatum, and Steve Carell and make me not give a shit about any three of these characters.
I can't wrap my mind around this because I liked it so much. Like when Steve Carell pulled out the gun and shot Mark Ruffalo. Like,
so predictable. So this movie, all right, so you said about 30 minutes in, you knew like the tempo, you knew that you might be in for a rough ride, right? Mm-hmm. I think at about 45 minutes, this movie got to be so predictable and like you knew exactly what was going to happen.
Well, you got to keep in mind.
I can't agree with this side of the table at all.
I was going to say,
but the main plot beat.
Right, a true story that I had never heard of.
Yeah.
So this was, you know, obviously it wasn't going to have like a Michael Bay explosion at some point. Like, I get all that, but
it doesn't seem like it.
I wasn't expecting a dramatic twist or anything. I went into this movie really open-minded thinking, all right.
How was Mark Ruffalo getting shot not a twist? I don't see
Steve
that.
Carell was off his rocker.
Right,
of course, but there was
he shot a gun in the gym.
Yeah, they've been foreshadowing it from the tank forward and saying, where's my gun? And he's like, and then he starts shooting like on the tank. He's like, where's the 45 caliber gun? And then later he's shooting a gun in the gym. I'm like, this guy is just
he's shooting the gun off in the gym till like he thinks that's motivating the wrestlers because he doesn't know how to be a proper role model,
but it starts
he desperately wants.
Listen,
again gives him more depth to his character. It makes you feel for his character more. I don't understand that.
Correction. Makes you feel for the character.
They're like Shrek. They have so many layers.
No, there's 0 layers. I saw one layer and it was stinky and it made me cry that if I had to sit there and cut it up anymore.
DreamWorks film.
That's a DreamWorks film.
It's a DreamWorks film.
That makes sense, doesn't it?
Again, you all are saying like, I love this. I love the disparity here because I'm the guy who's picked all of the flashy like comedy, cartoon movies, like put it right in your face.
Sure.
And like those are the ones I've always picked. And I did the different thing by taking a complete 1080 or something.
1080?
Yeah.
Just 180.
Like, no, I'm doing
1080. That's a lot of rotation.
So you're just doing multiple 360s.
Yep, we're
Tony Hawk. I did that.
Well, then we're back where we started. That makes no sense.
And I picked like the driest movie possible that I like wound up loving, and the people who are like, I always pick the middle ground movies, and like I don't like your big flashy movies. Now they say they want more flash. I don't know what they want.
No.
I don't know what they want.
If that's what you interpret Mason, fine. But I will not say I didn't want any more flash. It wasn't the flash thing I wanted from this movie. I wanted something that I cared about in this movie, and it just never came in the whole 2 hours and 30 minutes of it. And listen, that's
not something I can force on you.
You
Definitely
can't.
not.
You're right. And
But I don't know how you didn't connect with anything. In this movie.
the closest I got to anything is Mark Ruffalo's character as an older brother. Who
I loved
felt
him
like
as
he
a
was
dad.
Yeah, look, that's the only thing I found attachment to. And even then, I was just like, but then it never felt like it went more from there. Like, and I even felt it kind of got sleazy. I felt like that it demeaned it as well, because at the beginning he's sitting there and he's just like, I'm not moving my family, I'm not doing this. And then later, Steve Carell's character, DuPont, whatever, it's just like, I don't care how much money it's gonna take, I'm gonna get him here. Next thing you know, he's there and he's got the whole family there, and I'm just like, well, what the fuck? All right,
Well, because he sees language, by the way, sir.
Hey, this is a rated R podcast. We will use adult language as it.
All right, never mind. That's changed now.
All right.
Demonetized.
Yes, that's
But
fine.
Mark Ruffalo's character also has layers because he's trying to do so much at the same time with like the limited amount of screen time, because out of the three, he gets the least.
Oh, yeah.
Which
And
is another part of our problem.
Yeah, more him was better. But
But he also,
I get it.
like, you're just saying that all he's doing is trying to be a dad to his family. But he's trying to do so much more. He's trying to also, like, reconcile the fact that he's trying to wrestle and coach at the same time.
and be a good brother.
And be a good brother to somebody who is still infantile in the way that he thinks, and thinks, like, because Channing Tatum can't see him as somebody other than his, like, emotional rock. And then once he loses, like, he pushes him to the side and has Steve Carell's character because he thinks, like, this is the person who I'm going to lean on. And Mark Ruffalo's like, whatever, he's at least getting what he needs from somewhere else. And then when Steve Carell, like, goes off his rocker and Channing Tatum, like, is wanting to lean on Mark Ruffalo, he's like, no, I've got too much going on. Which was seen in especially in the hotel bedroom scene where he's like, we need to watch this, help, like, coach me to, like, help me do this. And Mark Ruffalo's like, I've got all these kids here, they take priority.
And then he starts throwing a fit.
And then he throws a fit.
Right.
He does that.
See,
Which, again, it also is a relationship about two brothers.
Two brothers that are in a weird situation of one being a surrogate father figure.
listen, I can get that. That's a thing I'm not going to talk about on this podcast. I get that.
Definitely
like,
that.
That is why I sat there and I'm like, that's, I think, probably why I connected with Mark Ruffalo's character, but even still, there was the likability just wasn't there for me. None of the depth of the thing was there. I just didn't click with this movie. At the end of the day, my biggest problem is that I didn't click with it. If I wanted to get into, like, being critiques and stuff, I felt like it was a drama that didn't have depth, which again comes back to my feelings on it altogether. A drama that didn't have depth, and it didn't feel like it had not necessarily stakes and that, like, something needed to happen or anything like that, but it just felt like I never found my investment into the drama. And if it's a drama that you didn't care about, then it's just a really bad experience. Mm-hmm. And it's strange, though, that, like, this is one of those movies, I'll start to wrap up on it because I feel like I've been going on for a minute on this, is that...
A little bit.
We need one more final point.
Right. Is that, as I tie in, and I guess I'll start with my score because I feel like I'm going to be on the far end on this one, is that...
You're so wrong. So wrong.
Well, okay, so Steve Carell has done only one other movie that has scored lower than this movie in my head, and that was Dinner for Schmucks.
Yeah.
And that is probably where I put a 2. This movie is a 3 to me. I literally had a terrible time with this movie. It was a drag drama that I didn't feel like it took seriously. It didn't feel like it hit any of the notes for me. It didn't feel like the score was non-existent. The times it did come in, it just felt, it was all flat. It was one long, flat 2.5 hour long note of characters that, and that I think is more impressive that it was bad to me, considering the cast was so talented.
The cast did everything that they could and more, and succeeded at everything they tried to do.
The cast followed the characters from real life probably as accurately as they could have.
Mm-hmm.
It's not about that.
Right.
It is about the tone of the movie. It is about how they filmed it. Like you said earlier that it was cold. I could probably name
feel that the whole
50
time.
adjectives that also match this, and they would not be positive. Because
cold is not necessarily a bad thing. You go into this movie preps you for a very cold
at the
movie.
end,
The beginning 10 minutes very much emphasizes how dreary and cold it's going to be. And I mean, it's a
would
very
you
adult
describe
movie.
the beginning of the film being cold as well as the end of the movie being cold?
Yes, that's one of the reasons I love the ending so much, is because, again, to your remember me point, like when you brought that up earlier, the endings both, I think, parallel each other, but Foxcatcher does it so much better in that in the final, like, 10 minutes, there's a big shift in the story. Of course, whatever, Robert Pattinson getting hit by an airplane, pretty big shift.
Spoiler for Remember Me.
That was one of our movies. Sorry. And Mark Ruffalo getting shot. But the difference between the two movies is that Remember Me goes on this horrible horrible 10,
Like,
15 minute
let's
The
long
post-show.
Yes, that post show that is completely unnecessary.
It's not my favorite part of the movie.
And
I'm not gonna lie.
but this movie, like, it just shows the effect on the one other character that's not in that scene, which is like you care about. Like the people you want to see are Steve Carell, Mark Ruffalo, Channing Tatum. Mark Ruffalo's out of the picture. Steve Carell's immediately taken to jail. That's all you need from like their ships. You know what happened to them. The very next scene, it just shows Channing Tatum and how he's just getting ready for that MMA fight with this horrible look on his face, like trying to cope with his brother's death in the only way he knows how. Movie ends.
You're
That's
not,
it.
yeah. You're not going to get us, to give you a thumbs down on an ending that ends like that with a movie like this. Like,
Right.
we were ready for that,
I was ready for that ending,
but
way before any of you guys were. I can promise you that.
yeah, that's the
so
thing. Like, it's
It's
not
a
about
decisive ending.
a lull.
favorite part of the whole film.
So I think my final point is going to be that, like,
You're so wrong. It hurts.
so after this movie, I started thinking about like other like real true stories that they've converted into films, and I can rattle off probably 20, but mainly Secretariat, a movie about horses.
The BoJack Horseman version, or
I don't know what you're talking about. Secretariat was a true story. Was it Dallas Bryce Howard or was it
Bryce Dallas
Jessica
Jessica
Chastain?
Yeah.
I think it was her. I don't care about horses at all. That movie is really good though. Moneyball, movie
Never
about
seen it.
baseball, the Oakland A's.
that
had
movie's
Brad
super
Pitt.
dry too.
Yep. All right. So
That movie's good. If you don't like baseball, like me,
you're missing
I
a huge
enjoyed it.
one. That is the exact
Miracle, maybe about the other Olympic team in 1982.
You're getting
that
warmer.
movie was so good, and I don't care about hockey.
Are you doing Remember the Titans?
No.
I hope not.
Well,
Okay.
Remember the Titans is a solid football movie, but
It's
I like
totally
football.
different. Totally.
It's totally
So different.
My point
I was waiting for you to
isn't.
bring that one up. I was like, come on.
My point isn't that like there's one sports movie for each true story. It's just that like I'm sure that there was lulls in Remember the Titans and Secretariat. Secretariat.
I mean, it's lulls in real life.
It's like a 3-hour long like lull, but they did it better.
I haven't seen it, so I cannot refute
They made
this.
you care, like, and I don't care.
I don't know
normally.
how you all do not care about these characters. I do not understand
There are
that.
so
Never got
many
it all.
better examples of true stories, even from the 80s and before that, that like they use the same tone, they use the same like type of filmography, I guess. But I don't know. This one totally left field. I think they missed the mark. For me personally, I couldn't get down with it. I'm gonna have to give it a 5, only because like I've seen wrestling, I've seen boxing and like MMA type movies, and just on and on from that same criteria. This one was nowhere near the realm. And it didn't need action. It didn't need any of that. It just needed
It sounds like you two need some action and some bouncing boobies on the screen or something. Maybe a Michael Bay explosion.
Don't simple mind.
I don't
No.
understand.
Don't start to simple
I
mind
am.
that.
I am. I don't-
I'm not big brain enough to understand.
Yeah,
That's why this
I'm
is a good
sorry,
movie.
Bryce.
And
We're
that's my
incompetent
problem.
with
All
our
right.
dramas
Right.
versus your dramas.
Right.
Like, sorry, we don't quite understand.
Guys,
your
if I could, you know what?
intellect.
That'll segment real soon. But let's finish up with the scores first.
All right, we'll go around since Mason went. I'll go next. You probably, by the way I've been talking about it, think I'm going to get it a 10. I'm not. I'm
No,
probably.
we've seen what you're.
I would leave.
Yeah. Oh, my 10.
I
Yeah.
think.
It was-
10
it
is
was
Eric's or
10
Tim and
and
Eric's
Eric.
$1 billion movie. So you're right.
What you get?
I'm not big brain enough to sit here and get why this movie is
Yeah.
not good.
Again,
We're-
10
yeah.
for me.
We're
10
pretty
for me.
dense.
Right.
I'm not saying it's the perfect movie at all, but
What was
for
the
me,
score again?
perfect.
Sorry, I was knocking on Tim and Eric's $1 billion movie.
No, I firmly stand by that 10. But for this movie, I'm definitely going to go 9.5. I am.
Wow.
I'm going to buy this movie. But the thing is, one of my main criteria about movies, which again is why I can't give it a 10, because I couldn't recommend it to people. I really couldn't, because as you've seen here, I thought I knew these two idiots. Apparently not. And I thought they would like it. So I don't know. It's just not I feel like it does everything super well, and I was invested the entire time. 9.5, solid for me.
That might be the most like out of this world. Like none of us would have expected that.
Yeah.
Knowing Price and knowing like how
yeah.
he's
I
ready.
like some of
I'm
these
definitely
very
surprised
dry
by
movies.
that.
Yeah.
I do.
This, when this movie started, I was like really like, okay, I'm ready to get into this. Like I like the idea of this. I like where it's going. Like I said, I felt like it was going to be a piece about, gold medalists and just how life sucks for them after that's over with. And I was like, that's something that is definitely worth being on the screen. Steve Carell's character, like, again, I know it's meant to be based on a real person and all that. That took it in a direction that I did not care much for.
That you didn't feel like it was grounded. I feel that.
Yeah, but like I know it is grounded mostly. There's a lot of things that they did that didn't actually happen.
Like what else? You said the gun.
Yeah. So the whole thing with them being in the airplane and snorting cocaine, that never happened. And I think that's a big one. That's I feel like that's
the 80s
because that is kind of when Channing Tatum transforms to like this. I'm going to do everything I can for wrestling. So like I'm going to like try to be the son to Steve Carell and like do everything I can. Which afterward he gets like frosted tips.
Yeah, he changes.
There's this weird character change that happens with him, and it bothers me that they do all of that on a false premise, and on a false premise that I think looks. You don't know this?
Oh, we didn't watch the film?
No, you're like, yes, that's why I hate it.
It's a valid point. You're right.
I agree.
Here's the thing, too. That also paints a really negative picture of who is a person that is a real person that this movie is based on. Like, that's not cool that they did.
Yeah, I would wonder what Mark Schultz, like, did you read anything about what he had to say about that?
I didn't.
Because a lot of that, like, that shift would normally have to happen over time to him becoming drinking and stuff like that. And I think this is my only opinion, is that, it was already a long movie. And to, like, show that shift, they needed like a kind of firecracker moment, I guess, to kind of see that. Because that shift in Channing Tatum's character took place, like, he did that, there was like 30-40 minutes of him dealing with that and then changing back. But sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, that's like the only spot in which I could see that and be like, okay, they took some creative liberties, but I don't think that was cool to do at all. I don't think they should have done that. Not with
not with a real life story based on a real person.
Like based on a true story kind of things about real people. But overall, I still did mostly like the movie. I kind of wish Steve Carell hadn't been the one being that character though, because as he got weirder, I kept thinking more and more about the fact that it was actually Steve Carell that was being the actor.
Have you watched All the Office?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So like that, it kept making me like think of him as who he actually was more and more as he got more just out there and weird.
Yeah.
And that took it further and further away from me. Like,
especially the scene where they're filming him on the documentary and he goes up to Mark Ruffalo and is like, "You're doing great, blah, blah, blah." And then he takes off and does that little victory lap around. Yeah, that seems like something Michael Scott would do.
Yeah, it was like he was increasingly like stepping towards being that character, and that was weird. Especially in what felt like was supposed to be a seriously toned movie.
Was this shot during The Office?
2013.
He was already off the show by then.
Yeah.
Pretty sure.
So he's just been Michael Scott brainwashed at that point. So
but
probably just coming out naturally.
I didn't hate the movie. I don't think I would suggest it. But it wasn't bad. I don't feel like it. I don't feel bad for having watched it. I think it was a pretty decent little film. I'm not as negative on it as you all.
Understand.
I do have my qualms with it, and I've already stated most of those. So, to me, I guess I would probably call it a 6. A 6 is probably where I would land with it, because it did a lot of things well. It at least from the start of it had me interested.
Sure.
Now, the rest of it maybe not so much, but overall, I think it was pretty decent.
Steve Carell's one of the only ones that really got recognized for their role. Mark Ruffalo got some noms. Biggest one was Steve Carell got. Oh, Mark Ruffalo got nominated for directing on that movie.
I will say
Mark
this
Ruffalo
much.
directed? Wait, that's something.
That's what it said on here.
It can't be. It says in the film. It's like some Everett.
Look.
Mark Ruffalo, best achievement in directing.
Yeah, but if you go back to the actual
Right. So who's listed as a director?
Bennett Miller,
Yeah,
he
Bennett
probably tossed it around a little bit, but
I didn't realize that was a Oscar category,
What?
like efforts in directing or something, but not actually being a director.
Well, I don't
What's
know.
awesome
That's what your
is
wheelhouse.
after I watch this, like I have this thing where I have to go to IMDb, especially if I just have such strong emotion about it, and I'll sit there and be like, please validate me, please justify my thing, please sit there and tell me that I'm right. I looked at it, if I'm not mistaken, you can pull it up again. Critics actually liked this movie pretty well.
Put it at
I think
an
on
88?
Metacritic. Well, I think Metacritic had it at
81.
70. Oh wow, 81.
There's an
And I read a couple of those reviews, and I was like, whoa. So I will back off a little bit. I'm probably treading in dangerous water here by giving it so much grief, but at the same time, it's just
It's how
not
you
for
feel about it.
everybody.
It's
Yeah.
not how.
Yeah, right.
It's not how the internet.
I don't care.
I
what
gave
the
Tim and
internet
Eric
or
a
crit-
10.
Yeah.
That's not how the internet.
Did you
thinks.
pull it up?
Right.
Pull it up. And
Make
pull
no
it.
mistake, I'm not trying to sell any critics on it. I'm not trying to sell anybody on it. This is strictly how I felt about this movie. And
Yeah.
I'm on.
listen, whenever I had to really define, so anything 5 and under, I consider a bad movie. But then you start getting into how bad of a movie, and I had to really clarify how bad it was. I'm like, it's definitely worse than Lawnmower Man in my head. If you haven't watched that film,
Oh.
we may review it. Yeah, Lawnmower Man, I had it a 4. So make no mistake, I walked away real miserable from this movie. Because here's the thing, I can validate Lawnmower Man because
I feel like my
there's a
scores
crowd.
are way more
There's-
validated.
there's
now.
at least a crowd for Lawnmower Man. It's a cult sci-fi like thing or whatever. Like,
Yeah.
Foxcatcher very much appeals to the wrestling community. If you look on Reddit, they were like chomping at the bit when this movie was coming out. Like I was looking at some of like the advertising shots
So
and
they
everything.
did a lot of good
They were
jobs,
wanting that.
I feel like, in showing like wrestling accurately. Like,
Sure,
wrestling-
I know
accurate in a
nothing about wrestling.
accurate in a positive light. It's
No.
that's fine, but
It's okay
again,
rolling around.
it's not my review is not for them. It's not for them. It's for me, and I guess whoever decides to end up watching this podcast. But we could get on all day. We've already given our scores. We're gonna go ahead and wrap up on this segment as far as that. So 6,
Agreed.
3, 5, 9.5.
Yeah.
Right?
So you got choked up on that last part.
I don't understand what's so wrong about that. Like,
Hey, you know what?
we
It's-
haven't had a movie like
It
this.
is your
We
opinion,
haven't.
and it is exactly. And one of the things we said going into starting this, and of course we got to a weird place as far as recording, as far as where our movies lined up. But we were saying that we want to do something out of our wheelhouse. But to kind of give you an idea what's been kind of in our wheelhouse before, and kind of doing a reflective piece on our movies thus far, segment that into what we're going to call movies of the month. So this is something that we're kind of retroactively doing because we're kind of catching up with a lot of movies that we haven't recorded
Very
and
much
watched.
so.
A lot of films, not
Yeah.
like
At least 16 of them.
not like 100, but 16's enough. We have about
Yeah.
about 4 months worth of movies that we can sit here and pick best of. So we're gonna go ahead and put that just right into the Foxcatcher one because where else we don't want to make a separate video for it. And we're just gonna go ahead and list off the first month's picks. So first month's picks, and then I'll chime off on who we think is the favorites.
Mason's got all the lists on his phone. He's got our scores as well. Honestly, I don't think we should also take our scores into account because maybe you
No,
thought
sure.
something different.
Sure.
I want to sit there and say like, all right, out
Yeah.
of these 4 films, which do we think was just like the one?
Do we allow us to pick our own movie?
No. It's gotta be one of
Wait,
those.
I'm okay with it.
Are,
I think-
No,
are we like each picking a
Yeah,
movie that
so
we
for
thought was
clarification
favorite
on the
of that month?
rules,
Or are we
yes.
like collectively coming to what was
Well, we can
Each.
argue. Well, I think we can argue it out later. Like,
Right,
after-
sure.
Okay.
All right, yeah. We'll kind of iron out the rules as we go along. This
Yeah.
is going to be a debate one. This video will run long, so stick with us because we are
Yeah.
covering up 4 months of wasted. Could be podcast, but we're just going to catch up on it.
Sure
now.
thing.
So month 1, Mason, read it off. What are
Alright, so
four
the
movies?
first month we had Phone Booth, which I think was 2002-ish.
That was
That
my
was
pick.
Dylan's. Mine was Me and Earl and the Dying Girl. Came out around 2015.
Mhm.
Price had picked Kung Fu Panda 2, which was probably around 2010-ish.
I have no idea. Teens.
And then
20
Nathan
years.
actually picked a movie called Scanner Darkly, which came out in the 2000s.
We still haven't had that was a very different movie.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Definitely don't
So,
want to.
so not taking scores into effect of those 4 films, I am on board with not picking your own movie because if it's me, I'm probably picking
I'm still fine with it.
90% of my own.
I used to think that we were all mature enough here at this table to not pick our own movie.
No,
Based on this discussion, these two.
Whoa! No. F yourself. I'll censor myself for this
Oh,
part
you're
of it.
censoring that.
I'll censor this because I have not said a word on saying that whatsoever, and you automatically group me in. Get back. Eat my ass is your literal words for one of the upcoming movie reviews on it.
Suck my ass.
Get bent.
Actually worse. So I'm fine with picking a movie if you think that
I
is
agree.
the best movie in that block for that time.
Because I already know, like, Prisoners, pretty sure I didn't pick something I like.
spoilers! But alright, we'll get to that month. But alright, so it was Phone Booth, Me and Old Dying Girl.
We'll go Nathan first, go this way, then we'll just go back.
Yeah. Review back on.
So we're not picking our own.
You
can.
are
I think
able
you
to pick
can.
your
You
own.
can,
Yeah. If
sure.
that's the one you feel like stuck
That's the
out
one
the
you feel
most.
like is the best.
I mean, I really do like Scanner Darkly, but
That's fine.
Muriel and the Dying Girl is definitely the kind of movie that I like. So I'm gonna go with that one.
I hate you.
Bryce is gonna get upset because I'm going to second that. I love Phone Booth. I've seen Phone Booth a whole lot, so it has that nostalgia appeal to it. I really enjoyed A Scanner Darkly. It was a strange, weird movie that did what it wanted to do. But I had a really good reaction with Muriel and the Dying Girl, so that's where I land with that one.
My pick.
You can pick your own.
I'm not doing it.
You can.
I'm not. I'm gonna
It's
try
gonna
to be.
like ruin everything else.
No,
Just
no,
do
no.
it. You obviously like that one the best, and that's totally fair.
So here's the thing.
That's
So
very
if,
much
if
in
I
Earl's
limit
wheelhouse.
myself out of me and Earl and the Dying Girl, I'm forced with.
He's
Phone
picking me,
Booth.
Earl.
No, Phone Booth,
Kung
Kung
Fu
Fu Panda 2, or Scanner
Scanner
Darkly. I'm actually going to go with the Scanner Darkly, mainly because if you haven't seen it, it is
valid.
so strange.
So it's a
Very
good-
different in so many ways.
I always just think of like the Sins of Freck moment.
Mm-hmm.
You remember
God,
like,
yeah,
the
the
big
reading.
yellow-headed guy with all the eyes
Yeah,
on his
yeah.
head? Like,
So trippy.
what a moment.
Yeah.
And that's probably my pick for that one.
Mine, I was very lukewarm on Scanner Darkly. Phone Booth, kind of liked it decently. Muriel and the Dying Girl, very much didn't like.
You didn't like that
But
one?
Kung Fu Panda 2 is one of my favorites still. I think it's one of the pinnacles of animation for me. I love it. So, going with that. Muriel and the Dying Girl, obviously got 3 votes. Not surprised at all. Perfectly fine with conceding.
2.5 votes by the table.
2 1/4.
Yeah.
All right.
Very much.
So that sums up that month. The
So-
next month, we actually had Dylan pick The Greatest Showman,
You don't have to
Hugh
give it
Jackman.
Yeah.
I
He is
picked
old.
Prisoners, which also had Hugh Jackman.
We were on a Hugh Jackman run there for a second.
Yeah. Price over here had Megamind, which
Hugh
I think was
Jackman.
another DreamWorks film. And then
It definitely
Nathan picked Lawnmower Man.
Wait, that was my second pick?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
You dove into the deep
Yeah,
end.
You,
early on.
you wanted to really nail home that trippy sci-fi vibe with it.
Lawnmower Man, as you've probably heard us reference multiple times in this podcast over the past couple episodes, it is a 1980s sci-fi film
He's
that
a-
sort of brought virtual reality into the spotlight in a way that the world was not ready for.
It is
No.
a sci-fi cult tech demo that goes completely off the rails, but knows it's going off the rails. So I kind of respect for what it was doing.
I don't think
But-
any of us hated that we had to watch it, though.
What do you speed it up a
So,
little bit?
all right. So we'll start from Price and we'll run then.
Yeah, go back around. What was it? Oh, Prisoners. Definitely. Again, I love that movie. I've already recommended it to many people. I love the dark tone of it. I really, really like it.
Yep.
I'm actually going to pick Megamind on that one, mainly because
British Showman didn't sell a lot.
Lawnmower Man wasn't all there, and I don't
Lawnmower
like
Man's the
musicals
other
a whole lot. So, Dylan?
Prisoners, hand down. Just a visceral gut punching experience. It's what I want out of a
100%.
drama, unlike Foxcatcher. Anyway,
Yeah. There were some really good choices that you all made in this month.
mhm.
I didn't. But that being said, I probably would go with Greatest Showman because
Very divided.
I really
Wow.
love that movie.
Everyone
Like,
picks that,
I
really.
would 100% watch that movie again. I have listened to the music.
Soundtrack is fire.
Yeah.
So we got
we're
two Prisoners, one
Oh, yeah, two
Megamind,
Prisoners.
one Greatest Showman.
Yep. So Prisoners.
So we still saying Prisoners. Everybody fine with that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm, like that would be probably number
Based
two.
on vote,
Okay.
I couldn't
Yeah.
say. Yeah, like there's enough. It's high enough on probably everybody's top 4.
Yeah. Okay.
Right.
The next month, we had Dylan picked Spirited Away, which is a, what do you call it? Studio Ghibli film?
Studio Ghibli
From
yeah.
2001.
Animated
That's
Uh,
gonna be tough to beat.
Yeah.
I had picked Raw, which is a French film.
Put it in
Meanwhile,
We'll just edit this part out because I know it's not even going to be worth
I
the
want to clarify.
conversation.
Up until this point, Mason's movies have been the 2
Twice.
month picks up to this point.
Yeah,
Go on.
and we.
I guess I got out of everyone's comfort zone. The next movie was Tim and Eric's $1 billion movie, which was Price's pick.
Oh man.
And then Nathan had picked The Fifth Element, sticking with the sci-fi type feel. I think that was in the 90s.
Yeah.
So-
yeah.
Man, out of those 4, it's hard for me not to pick my own on this one. Spirited Away is a lot for me. I absolutely adore that film. It is a great entry into the fairy tale stuff. I could brag on it all day. We will do. If I have to do a retroactive review on it one day, so be it. But Spirited Away, I'm gonna have to go with my pick on
Agreed.
that one.
Oh, is it my turn?
Yep.
I'm actually going to go with The Fifth Element on this one. Fifth Element was the first time I'd ever seen it, which was kind of cool. Had Bruce Willis. Couldn't really dislike it very much, just because it was, for its time, I thought.
You connect with him, but not with any of the real people in Foxcatcher?
Sorry.
What?
Did Foxcatcher have
Bruce Willis is a joke in that
Hover
movie. He's a ridiculous hero.
Don't give him the argument that we're simple-minded.
Who, like,
If it doesn't
tried
have
to
hover
realize I
cars,
just
then
He,
that's-
like,
confused.
He
Yeah.
practically rapes that.
All
guy by,
right.
kissing her
All
when
right.
she's asleep.
So consent's a little faulty, and it's very much a product of its time. But we're not here to review it all the way through.
And that's what you connect with?
So
If you see Price on the street and you really just want to set him off, just say Fifth Element.
No, I appreciate the movie, but that... Okay, sorry. Well, I'm getting way off the deep end.
Yep.
Now, this is actually I've never thought about this before because Spirited Away, I think I gave like a 9.5, gave a high score for that. Tim and Eric got a 10 out of me. I really, really like that
You
movie.
gave a 10 and a 9.5. Yeah.
But even though Tim and Eric got the higher score, I think I'm going to have to go Studio Ghibli or Spirited Away for the movie of the month. I really, really like that movie. Again, by my scores, it's two of my highest scoring movies.
next to Foxcatcher.
And I love that movie. You can gif and gaff all you want.
Yeah.
I love that
We
movie.
will.
We will.
I think it's great.
We will continue to make this show going on. This is my new lawnmower.
I'm going to Spirited Away.
All right, but I respect your choice of that movie that month, though. Nathan.
This month was like a lot of lows and a lot of highs. Like there was
Some of the lowest lows.
There was like the lowest comedy low I'd experienced, and then like a movie that I multiple times kept telling myself I could turn this off whenever I want. I don't have to watch it.
And I'd like to.
Yeah.
That was Tim and Eric.
Well, I was actually both that
Tim
and
and
Raw, and I really, really wanted to turn Raw off. Oh my god!
Multiple times.
There were many times when I was just like putting something up in the way of the screen, just be like, no.
He didn't watch it. I'm picking. Or you're picking for him.
Price Price
another
mentions
French
that he
word.
thinks that we need boobs and explosions in it, and I tell you this, Raw is no shortage of female nudity, and I've still never wanted to turn a movie off so fast in my entire life.
All right.
But
okay,
Okay,
your movie.
so that being said,
You
Fifth
can't pick your
Element's
own.
great, but Spirited Away, like I had never been that into anime in
Sure.
general, and this was
Here
the
they come.
first time that we had really got into watching one of those on
Sure.
this series that we've been doing, and it was fantastic. It was.
I remember you
It
really liked
showed
that.
me that anime can be good.
You
right,
gave it an 8.5. So
Yeah.
Mason wasn't hot on it, but anyway. So
All right,
last
yes.
but not least,
Sorry about that.
Is this the last one?
No, we got two more. The next month, John Wick Chapter 2 was Dylan's pick. Mine was Moonrise Kingdom, the Wes Anderson film. Price, I think, had gone with the movie that he had heard of called Penguin Highway.
Mm.
And then Nathan picked Crimson Peak.
Golly,
So
That's a really good.
that was a
one.
big month.
Whew, I'm totally upset on that one.
That is a loaded month for me,
Oh.
actually.
I am. Wow, that's the easiest one.
All right, Nathan, back on you.
He's first.
Oh, no, wait, sorry, yeah, we're supposed to
Yeah.
okay. Yeah, Mason.
So going with the same, I'm not picking.
You can
my
pick your own.
I'm not doing it.
Okay, that means you picked your own.
I'm
All
gonna
right.
no. I mean, I love Moonrise Kingdom, but I'm gonna go with Penguin Highway. It was another anime film right after Spirited Away month. Penguin Highway was much unheard of. None of us knew who the hell made it, why it was made.
I hadn't even seen it
anything.
before.
It was fun. It was something to kind of scoff at and laugh about, and I think a lot of people. It resonated with a lot of us. Yeah, that's my pick that month.
All those other movies. Crimson Peak, I think I was the highest on. What were the other two?
Mine
John Wick.
was
John
Moonrise
Wick.
Kingdom.
Yeah.
John Wick 2 and what?
Moonrise Kingdom.
Yeah,
You
very,
definitely
I very
didn't
much
do
was
about
not a
those
fan of those two. Crimson Peak I was alright on. Penguin Highway I still liked a lot. Even though I wasn't like in love with Penguin Highway, I was like more a fan of it than any of the other movies that week, which is again not the highest praise I can give.
That's
Sure.
fair.
I did like Penguin Highway a lot.
Yeah.
So Crimson Peak was my pick. I enjoyed it a lot, but
Hey guys, y'all are fine.
John Wick 2
Hey
and
Jericho, huh?
I honestly I'd give it to Moonrise Kingdom. Like
That's
I,
that's amazing.
I
That's fair.
really liked the feel of that movie.
Yeah,
it
it
was
was
weird
fun,
at times, but
yeah.
it introduced me to Wes Anderson.
Did you say Moonrise?
Yes.
Okay.
I can
That's my
appreciate that.
Yeah. This is hard for me. These are torn really close between.
For you, I definitely understand.
Penguin Highway and Moonrise Kingdom were really neck and neck on that, and I honestly I could flip a coin on any given day, but if I have to pick today, I think Penguin Highway left a bigger impression on me after I watched the film. It was one of the ones where I sat there, I watched it, and I had a more emotional reaction to it that lasted a little bit longer than Moonrise Kingdom. Not taking away anything from Moonrise Kingdom. Loved Moonrise Kingdom.
Yeah.
But yeah, if it's between those two by just a sliver, it's Penguin.
I can understand my pick barely getting by.
Mhm.
I really
There's
can.
still one more.
Everybody's all right with that.
One more month before we get caught up.
One last one.
Last one. Dylan had picked Remember Me. It had
Not one
Edward
this month.
Cullen in it. I had picked a movie called Your Name. It was another anime, which is. It seems like we got a fever for those.
Oh,
yeah.
Price had picked Pop Star, Never Stopping, and Nathan had picked Interview with the Vampire, which was a Tom Cruise film back in the 90s.
So I guess are we back on me then again?
No.
Nathan.
How was it back to me?
Yeah.
Okay. Alright, so it was
Your
for
Name.
me it was Your Name. That was again another one
It
where
is, yeah.
Interview with the Vampire is like one of those ones I've watched multiple times. Like with your wife Hannah.
Yeah.
It's a classic. It's something
It's a
that I've
classic.
watched.
There's a lot of nostalgia to it too,
Yeah.
so it's hard not to
Yeah.
love it. But
But that being said, it doesn't hit emotionally the way that like Your Name did.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And
You
it
weren't
was,
on the edge of your seat probably as much as you were with
Right.
Your Name.
Yeah,
it's not true.
Speaking for
I know,
myself,
which is
at
crazy,
least.
yeah.
The ending of
Oh,
Interview with the Vampire had me
it's so
all the way in the
good.
back of my seat. Love that film.
Yeah.
I'll take over from here, and I think I'm pretty safely going to speak for the group in saying that we're probably all going to pick Your Name on this one. I don't think we're in any disagreements on this. It was a great animated movie, gut-wrenching, tense when it needed to be. It hits all the great notes. This is a very flavorful buffet, so to speak, if I had to go into that.
It wasn't a buffet of bland.
Yeah, it was not a buffet of bland, as I would describe Foxcatcher. But yeah, Your Name, hands down, was that movie pick for it. I love that film.
It was too good. I don't think any of us saw it coming. It was.
You picked it.
It was a blind pick for him, though.
It was a blind
Oh,
pick for me. Yeah. Somebody at work told me to watch it. Tyler.
That
actually.
person at work.
Oh, did he?
Yeah,
Okay.
and he was like on to me about watching it.
Yeah.
Too. He was like for probably 3 months. He told me this.
Well, I mean, after watching Spirited Away and then going into a Penguin Highway film, these are all like very
yeah, it
peak
was a
Japanese animated
transition.
film, so it's
For
why not?
sure.
That would make sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I ended up picking it blind, and that will be one that I pick for myself because it's really good.
Going to be the one and only unanimous pick. Steph, I mean, you all know it's going to be Your Name for me. I mean, I listen to the soundtrack on a daily basis.
It's very
I
good.
love that movie. I have it on Blu-ray.
That is a very immaculate film. Like, those are one of those films that just hits right
It
over the
is.
top. Like,
That ending is. There, not too many movies are that perfect.
the one
ending
teen
for me.
drama that Price actually votes as movie of the month.
It's
I did
anime.
because yeah.
Yeah.
It's all right. Are we,
So we
are we caught up now?
We're
All
on.
right,
I think
so
We'll have
that's-
one next week.
So yeah, we will have one more next week, and we'll start to do those full sketches along.
You can
those
just
lines.
tell her to get down if you like.
That's Baja, not that one.
Baja.
Bah!
Sit down,
Sorry,
leave it
Hayden.
alone.
Last but certainly not least, of course, in this segment we translate into what is going to be coming up next. So next week's episode,
That's my pick.
Nathan's
Yeah.
week. So Nathan, take it away.
Well, in the tradition of picking something different this month,
Mhm.
something out of what we would normally pick, I'm going to go with Repo the Genetic Opera, which is a musical.
I've heard of it, never seen it.
So get ready for that one.
Yeah.
But it's not your normal musical. It's like rock opera. So
All right.
one of the most notable actresses, is Paris Hilton. So
Speaks volumes about the film
yeah,
already.
it's not reviewed super well. Like, I don't want you guys to have your hopes up at all, but I enjoyed it, and maybe it'll make for some.
Nathan is a quantity over quality kind of guy, if you can tell. He's really knocking him out of the park with dingers.
Yeah. So
with ground balls.
as much as Price wants to sit here and feel like he takes all the most hated movies, I think most of the lukewarm ones definitely come from Nathan's categories. I think reflecting through all those ones.
Willingly.
I just get the most flack.
By choice. But whenever Price makes a bad call, he makes a bad call. So that's here first. This is our podcast review of Foxcatcher here at the F Movie Podcast. I'm your host, Dylan Camacho. You guys want to sign off? Where can we catch you at? Nope. Price not wanting to sign off.
Not today.
Mason or Nathan not wanting to sign off. They don't want to do any plugs. You can catch me at CAMACH Octopus at Twitter.
At Twitter.
Yeah. On Twitter at yeah, you know what I mean. All right, guys. Well, that's been a long podcast for today. See you next week.
Yeah.
Baja bothering poor Hayden over there.
I know.
It keeps thinking